Welcome to week 6. This is problem 2. A study showed that 39% of all firms in a country A are owned by women. You are phoning local businesses, assuming that the national percentage is true in your area. You call 4 firms. What is the probability that all 4 are owned by women? This is an example of a problem that we can use binomial distribution or binomial probability function to help us with. What does this mean? It means, first of all, that you have a series of events that are happening n times. So you're making n phone calls, in this case 4, and the events are identical. So what's going to happen? The possible outcomes are only 2. In this case, it can either be owned by a woman or owned by a man. So the outcomes are 2, and hence we talk about binomial, with the key prefix being bi in that case. So the probability of success is the same for every one of the n events. And in this case, if we call it P, the probability of failure is Q. Now we need to note that P plus Q must be equal to 1. Now the binomial distribution has a pretty scary looking formula that I will land on the page just for reference to show you. You can use this expression to calculate probabilities like we have in this problem. So we know the probability for one of the several events. Now with multiple such events, how can we forecast the probability overall for success? Now I'm going to use PHstat to show you this, and if you notice, I don't have PHstat, which will show by having the add-ins icon right here when you're on the home tab. Now if you have PHstat downloaded on your computer, then you will see PHstat2 right here. If you click on it, allow it to enable macros, and voila, you get the add-ins tab. Click on the add-ins tab, we go to PHstat, click on this. We're doing a probability and probability distribution problem. In this case, it's the binomial probability. Click on that, and then it will ask you for the input. Now I'm going to do way more than I would need to do for this problem, just to show you in principle what the power of this thing is. The sample size, 4 phone calls, the probability of success, which is the probability that we get a business owned by a woman, is 0.39, and we do this in a decimal format. I want to see outcomes from, let's do 0 to 4 successes, and let's call this 0 to 4. And I want to do cumulative probability so that I can talk you through some of the outcomes, as I said, way beyond what the problem is asking for, but you'll be able to use this to do future problems or anything at all to do with a binomial distribution. If you click on OK there, then you end up with this nice table, and you recall that in PHstat, what's highlighted in blue here is your input. So we told the system 4 samples, probability of success is 0.39. Now to zoom in on this table here, this is showing you various probabilities for different combination of x's. In this case, the probability of exactly x, probability of less than or equal to x, less than x, and so on. The question that we are interested in, the answer will be found right here, and this is the probability of exactly x. What is exactly x? 4 successes in 4 trials with a probability of 0.39, and we get 0.023134, and you would round that off appropriately using the correct principles of rounding. Now this whole table shows a lot more information, and it goes beyond, as I said, solving the problem. So for instance, let's just look at a couple so we can see. This row here is showing the probability of x being less than or equal to 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this number here, for instance, what does that represent? This represents the probability of 2, which is what is here, or less successes, which means this involves 2 successes, 1 success, and 0 successes. So you have to know how to read what is given here. As opposed to this number here, what's the difference with this one that's highlighted here? This is showing you the probability that is less than x. X is 2, probability that is less than x, it's gonna have to be 1 success or 0 successes. So that's what this 0.49 represents. And if you look, this one here means the probability that is less than or equal to x. What does that entail? In this case, x is 4. So we're talking about equal to 4, less than 4, which is 3, 2, 1, and 0. So that's every possibility for 4 trials. So therefore, we shouldn't be surprised that this works out to be equal to 1. So click on this and see if you can figure out what each of these mean. Like this is 0. The probability that is less than x, can we get less than 0 successes? Absolutely not. So that is going to be 0. This is also 0. Probability of greater than x, where x is 4. Is that possible? No, it's not, because we're doing 4 trials. So this is a pretty powerful output, and I wanted to spend a minute talking you through how we got it. Now, looking at another way of doing this, if you click, I simplified the cell to just show you what we wanted as our response here. If you look at this function that is being used, it's binom_this, which is another Excel function, and what this does, it returns probability for a binomial distribution where you input the number of successes as the first argument, the trials as the second, the probability as the third, and a factor for cumulative or not cumulative as the fourth. In this case, what we're looking at is probability binom_this, and the number of successes we were interested in is 4. How many phone calls did we make? 4. What was the probability of success? 0.39. And the true or false, if you look at here, you will see how to differentiate. You use true if you want a cumulative probability. So if you were interested in finding out what if it were 4, 3, 2, 1, or 0, as opposed to false, which is saying the probability that is exactly the number of successes that we have as the input. So we are interested in exactly 4 successes, and then you hit enter, and this number is your answer. So this is the principle that we're using for the binom_this function in Excel to be able to calculate the probability of 4 calls, and all 4 being women, if we know the probability of calling a company owned by a woman for each of the 4 events. Now take a look at the function in Excel, take a look at the powerful sheet that you get from using PHstat. Click around on these cells, look at how we calculate these values here, and this will be a pretty useful teaching tool, I hope. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.